Welcome to Great Outdoors Garage. Now, some of you may have noticed we missed a video earlier this week. And some of you might be confused about that. Some of you might not. Interesting looking at some of the different animal tracks out here through the snow. But here's the deal. As many of you know, and not surprisingly, most of my viewers are on the North American continent. North America is not really a weather-friendly place to live right now. And where I am, we got about 6 inches of snow, which is a little unusual for us to get that much in the wintertime. It's nice to see the snow. For me, I enjoy seeing the snow, but the bitter cold, I don't like. And, you know, when I look at snow, yeah, fine, 32 degrees, whoop-de-doo. Freezing, below freezing. But once it gets below 20 degrees, I'm out, y'all. I'm just out. And that's what we've been dealing with this week. And around here in the Great Outdoors garage area, when the temperature gets that low, your motivation has to change a little bit from doing things to just hunkering down and surviving through the frickin' cold. And it's a little bit warmer today, so I walked out here to kind of show you all what's going on, and we can see it's starting to melt. But tomorrow is going to be bitter cold, and if you watch this video, it's supposed to release tomorrow. Just to find you a warm place, okay, and be real safe. This kind of weather is not to be played with, and you can really end up in a bad situation. So that's why there was no Tuesday video this week, and I'm hoping to get out a at least decent video for you here on Saturday. But I mean, look at this. It's crazy to me. I'm almost blind right now. I didn't bring my sunglasses. And so I'm just staring into this snow, and the sun's coming down a little bit here, and I'm staring right into it. At least the sun's nice and warm. But we may see some spotty videos here over next week, because we're going to get another round of this stuff, and it's going to be well, it's just not going to be pleasant. So we're going to hunker down, and I hope to make you some more videos, and I hope you enjoy today's video. And I'm really interested in all these different tracks. Good thing is I don't see any of them are human, so nobody's trespassing, so that's good. But it just looks like a lot of different various animals. I would guess mostly deer. But we do have some bobcats out here occasionally. So, one of those things. But here it is. The Great Outdoors Garage. Frozen over. So, I guess we'll start the video now. What in the world? Is this mess? Well, I'll tell you. What this is a homemade heavy-duty spindle sander. Now, at the time I built this, I realized I could buy a spindle sander back then for about $100, and you've seen the little ones. Well, maybe you haven't, but a lot of you have seen the little ones. They're less than half this size. They're kind of shaped around like this, and they come around like that, and they're about that size there, and they oscillate. So the spindle sanding drum oscillates up and down as it sands. This one does not do that. This one does not oscillate at all. However, this has features to make it extremely heavy duty. Now, Why do I want an extremely heavy-duty spindle sander? Well, because I do a lot of metal work. And we covered that very familiar bench grinder over there across the shop. And it is great, excellent for doing heavy, heavy, rough work. Get it ground down roughly to shape and, get your part made up to where, you kind of need it. This is your fine tuning machine right here. This will sand really nicely. It's actually really good for, sharpening axes and tools that need sharpened like that. And the great thing is, too, you can put different grits on these different spindles. You can also install different size spindles on it. So how did I build this? And I want to leave you in the dark about some of the components that make this thing, because I really want you all to comment about what you think this is made out of. Because I think if you look, you might be able to figure out how I made this. But some things happened. One of the things is I needed a good straight shaft here to mount the spindle sanders onto. And initially I thought, well, I'll just go buy a bolt. What's terrifying is when you buy a bolt that's over about 9 inches long or so, and this needed to be, I think, about 10 inches long. I forget exactly the manufacturing spec I had to come up with on this. But very long bolt, and when you buy them, they're not straight, they're curved. And I don't understand how a bolt with machine thread on the end of it that's that long and curved like this, how you're supposed to actually get it to bolt into anything. I'm completely confused. So, that's that. But what I did is I looked for bolts initially for the spindle part of it. That didn't work out. And so what I came to the idea of is that I could use a Chevrolet small block distributor shaft, because the old ones had distributors on them, and that distributor had a long shaft inside of it. But the problem is, this is actually supposed to be a 1/2 inch hole in here. All of these little sanding drums have 1/2 inch holes inside of them. So what I didn't realize, and what I've learned nowadays, is the stock Chevrolet distributor shaft, for some reason, is not a 1/2 inch. It's actually, I believe, 0.490. So it's a little bit less than 1/2 inch. I don't know why in the world Chevrolet did that from the factory. And what's funny is if you buy an aftermarket distributor, it will have a 1/2 inch shaft in it, a 0.500, for those who don't know what a 1/2 inch is. Anyway, those shafts are actually really straight because, the distributor is a component, for those who don't know, that basically spins on the motor. I'm not going to go into the exactings of a distributor right now because we don't have time for that. But basically, it's got a shaft in it that spins round and round and round. And so that shaft has to be straight for it to spin round and round like that without binding. So that's where I initially got the shaft for this motor. Now, luckily enough, over the years, I acquired a mini lathe, which is not the most accurate lathe in the world by any means. But a few years ago, this thing was really noisy when you turn it on. It just made like a chunking noise. And it was because that old distributor shaft wasn't really perfect for the bearings that are in here. Because the bearings that are down here, I've got 2 ball bearings under here. And they are the next size up from a 1/2 inch. I'm sorry, I can't quote it off of memory. I meant to look that up before I made this video, but that's not important right now. What's important is that I remade this shaft, and I made it where it steps up to go into those bearings. And then I also added a few accoutrements to make it work a little bit better. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. I'm going to pull the safety cover off, and we can look and see what's underneath here. Now we have our sanding spindle removed, and we can see the shaft I was talking about that I'm remade in the lathe, or actually made in the lathe. And we can see a few of the components of how this works. There's a little washer here that I like to put on the bottom just to keep the spindles just away from the bearing a little bit. There's also a circlip down here holding this shaft from dropping down, which is another reason why I remade this shaft. The old one didn't have any provision to keep it from just dropping like that. What I did is I center drilled the top of it and tapped in a bolt hole so that you can just bolt straight down what you need. This safety cover, that's actually part of an old computer housing that I just cut and made to where it could set over the cavity here. And, you know, it's kind of funny. I bought this set of sanding drums and these little carriers for one of those little spindle sanders. And I'm like, well, I'll just screw that down to my spindle sander stand and make it all work. So, you know, you can put these smaller gapped pieces down, and I guess those are really useful if you've got a, you know, oscillating spindle sander, which this one does not oscillate. And I don't really need it to oscillate. So those are kind of nice, and I bet they're great on a regular spindle sander. On this thing, it really doesn't matter. But what we've got is two stepper pulleys down here. And they're 3-groove stepper pulleys. The other one is down there. You can barely see it in the dark. But I bought these at a local hardware store. And the thing is that I discovered is these stepper pulleys, well, for lack of a better way to say it, the hole wasn't in the center of the pulley. And so the pulley, instead of spinning over like this, spun over like this. Also, to make it even worse, the hole was not straight in the pulley. It was crooked in the pulley. So not only was the pulley oscillating back and forth, it was wobbling as it went, which is really disappointing to buy something off the shelf and see that it's been machined that poorly, because it was epic levels of poorness in my opinion. So what I did when I remade this shaft is I actually took that pulley down there and I chucked it in the lathe, and I realigned it, centered it up the best as I could, rebored the center hole in it so that it was actually straight and true, and the loudness level of this machine went way down from that. And it also runs over much smoother, and it's just in general much nicer to operate. But this spindle sander is actually variable speed. Most are not. I usually just run it in the 1-to-1 setting. But, you know, since I could buy the stepper pulleys, you know, why not? It was the easiest pulley for me to get my hands on. So I went ahead and just got those. What I like about this is I can basically put on anything I want and work on anything I want. This thing is great for, like, if you're doing an exhaust system and you need to deburr the inside of the exhaust tubing. You know, you can take one of the smaller spindle sanders and slip your exhaust tubing over that and take the deburr out of it, or take the burr out of it, sorry. And to put it together, I mean, you just literally tighten the bolt down and, you know, you're good to go. So in just a minute, I'll do a demonstration of operating this machine, and it's pretty neat. So I wanted to take a minute really quickly and show you what stepper pulleys look like, because you may not have heard that term before. And this is a little bit more elaborate stepper pulley setup, but basically the stepper pulley, as you see, I have multiple steps that I can put it on, multiple diameters, really. That's the important thing, multiple diameters, and then here are other multiple diameters. Well, if I change this, if I move this belt from here down to here, it spins the chuck of this drill press over faster. Now right now I've got this in the slowest setting because I use this drill press for heavy duty work. So it's always good to have it spinning over as slow as possible for heavy duty work. But for that spindle sander, it gives me the ability to adjust the speed that sanding drum is turning, which just gives me a little bit more versatility. And it's one of those things, I wouldn't have done it if those pulleys weren't the most readily available thing. It's, it's one of those things. It's like, hey, I can grab these real quick, make the thing variable speed, and it's just going to make it that much more versatile of a tool. So why not? So I really like this setup on this spindle sander. And it's actually got some kind of good safety features to it. This switch down here, you pull it to turn it on and you push it to turn it off. So potentially if anything ever bad was happening, all you'd have to do is just slap that switch with your hand and the thing's going to turn off. I also like we've got a super heavy duty power cord. This was just left over from other projects, and so it became this tool's power cord. I wanted an ultra heavy duty motor that I could just run and run and run. So, maybe you all can think about maybe where that motor came from and comment on it. Anywho, all you do is pull this switch and there you go. That's really useful for semi-heavy work and then really just fine-tuning something. It's really great if you're trying to shine something up or just make it really nice. It's good for that. It's also good for woodwork, although it's way more powerful than you need for woodwork, but who cares? It gets the job done. And it just works. So my big question to you is, what all did I make this out of? I mean, I already kind of clued you in on some of it, and I think, I think you're going to pick out the components of this. I have a feeling my viewers are pretty savvy on this kind of thing. So really curious to hear your comments about what this is made out of. And remember, like, comment, and subscribe, because you're not going to get content like this anywhere else.